Hello and welcome to episode 26 of the Cosmic Force. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Riganti, and on tonight's show, we have two new comic series announcements coming in 2022. We have an oversized weekly pull list, and we discuss how valuable your comics could be, with keyword there being could. But first, let's go around the room and let's introduce the rest of the team tonight. And we start where we always do with Emma, and I have to finally give you a sense of congratulations because it's baseball season is over. Your Red Sox beat my Rays, and it's now hockey season. Let's move on and let's talk about the hockey.
Hey everybody. Yeah, I for our audio listeners, I am currently wearing a Red Sox t-shirt. I am so hyped on baseball right now. Oh my gosh, the Red Sox weren't even supposed to make the playoffs, and now they're in the ALCS. And oh my gosh, it's just so exciting. So by the way, I got to start my smack game because my Red Sox are playing Wes's Astros in the ALCS. So let the smack talking begin.
Wes is cheating Astros. Let's call
a
spade a spade. Let's call a spade
there we
a spade.
go. Although, you know what? I was just going to self-burn. I don't want to self-burn right now. He can do that. He can figure it out.
All right. And in addition to Emma, we have Caleb tonight. Caleb, I know you're not as into the fantasy sports or anything, but how are you doing tonight? What
doing well?
What we have on tonight?
We have the Vader tie on, and I was about to say, she can uptalk her Red Sox all they want, but it will be a almost civil war here if the Braves make it to the World Series. I might, if they make it there, I don't care if they win or not, but I will probably buy some Braves merchandise to wear on the show just to rep the hometown and everything. So be prepared for that. If they can beat who are we going against? Dodgers?
That hasn't been decided yet.
Because they're
game
playing
5. Yep.
Okay, so we'll see whether or not we have a hope yet. But it's Braves country all over. It's America's team. So
the Braves are my first love. Growing up in Florida before the time of the Rays, I could only watch baseball by TBS, which was the Braves.
Thanks, Ted.
Or WGN and the Cubs, and the Cubs were awful in the 90s, so I had to watch the Braves. So the Braves are my first love. So I guess that's the team I'm going to be cheering for now.
Absolutely. I'm excited. It's always fun to see the home team make it all the way and then fail, just like a proud Georgia tradition.
And last but certainly not least, our producer Jacob. I guess we could talk about fantasy football, or we can talk about fantasy hockey, because Carolina doesn't really have a baseball team.
What's that tie?
Is that a Braves tie?
It is a Braves tie. I remember that I remember that I told Carolyn and Andrew that I wear a Braves tie in Slack, and then I didn't wear a collared shirt. So for the next 30 seconds, I'm repping the home team, or not home team. I'm not from the South, but whatever.
Well, I think it's safe to say that the Atlanta Braves are the official baseball team of the Cosmic Force.
I guess.
There are three of us. There are three of us who are cheering for the Braves this postseason, and only one of us cheering for the Stinking Sox. So
the Stinking Sox.
The
what
Stinking
are you talking
Sox.
about?
Yes. So if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We don't I can't say we don't normally, because we do normally lead the show off with sports, because we are lots of sports fans, but we do eventually get to talking about Star Wars comics, because that's what we are. We are a Star Wars comics podcast that broadcasts live right here on youtube.com/Youtini every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. If you can't join us live, that's okay. Our videos are on this channel for you to watch whenever you have the chance. And we are also on all of your favorite podcast platforms if you choose to consume us via the audio version. We are also part of the Youtini Podcast Network of nearly a dozen shows and a Discord channel at youtini.com/Discord with more than 1,000 members with dozens of channels to choose from. I believe the most popular, most active channel this week is probably Ronin. I think is that safe to say, everybody, that everybody's really hyped about the Ronin release this week?
Yeah, I would say so. That's been getting really, really high reviews, and I've started it myself, and a little too early to say, I think, what I feel about it. But hey, there's a Star Wars author named Emma, so it must be cool.
Exactly. And we have a good interview with them on the on the channel where the Living Force managed to get a whole hour interview, and it was listened to it, and it was a really, really good time there. So if you're at all interested, watch that, and you'll sorely tempted to buy that book, if only to support a person you know a lot more about. So give that a watch.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think the author, they're a genius. I think they're listening to them was like kind of wild. I mean, it made me think a lot about what I had already read in a different way. So I'm excited to see what comes next.
Yes. So after we're done, go over, watch the interview, and then go into our Discord at utini.com/Discord and join in the conversation in our Ronin channel, and be a part of our community. And if you like what you see and you want to say thanks, then you can also head over to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Utini, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Utini podcast network of shows, as well as exclusive merch and community activities. So before we get into the main part of the show, we do have some comics news. And Jacob, I spared you. I only put in the 2 that we knew of, because there was a third one that we were kind of teetering back and forth on, but we were like, you know what, let's save that. We've got plenty of news to talk about tonight.
Yeah. So am I taking
Jacob,
this?
go ahead and
I mean,
go ahead
I
and take the
did.
first article.
Yeah, I guess yeah. Okay. So, War of the Bounty Hunters wrapped up today, and we'll talk about that. Well, it'll be in the weekly poll, but we got some new exciting news to go along with that. We already knew that Charles Soule was writing a trilogy of comics to take place in this time frame and tell Kira's story. One of those was, of course, War of the Bounty Hunters. The other, we had Crimson Reign, which was announced in September. And we found out that the final part of the trilogy is called The Hidden Empire. So not much is known right now, but it'll be likely, another mini series that'll come out sometime in 2022. So very exciting.
Exactly.
The way that I'm reading this is, it's not going to be an event, but it's going to be an additional title. So we'll have our 4 main titles doing their own thing, and then, or I guess 5 if we include the High Republic, and then this will be kind of a 6th title that will be independent. Well, we don't. I mean, who knows if it's
Crimson Reign definitely seems like it's just like its own thing. But
I agree.
I guess it's too early to tell with Hidden Empire. I kind of hope it's its own thing. But we'll see. We got a little time to figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm wildly excited for these because the titles just keep getting better and better and more interesting. It's like Hidden Empire. Oh my goodness, what? And also, by the way, every time I hear the title Crimson Reign, I just want to sing it. Crimson Reign, Crimson Reign.
That's not good. DMCA takedown.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But like when I read the issue and saw like the third, it'll be concluded in the Hidden Empire. I'm like, wait, wasn't that already a Legends book? I feel like that's been a Legends.
See,
book.
I had lots of issues writing the article. I kept trying to write, smash the 2 together and write Crimson Empire, which is a Legends comic.
That's it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I kept like looking. Well, I saw it, I was like, has that been announced? I don't know if that's been announced. Is this news? I don't know if this is news yet.
It is
so
news.
Yes, it is news. Crimson, you got me on it.
Hidden Empire.
Hidden Empire. Not Shadows of the Empire.
Shadows of the Empire.
Shadows of the Hidden Empire will be the sequel.
Hey, so if there's more, Star Wars comics that are talking about the underworld, still a chance for Shizor to show up. We got some teases of more Black Sun involvement.
See, here I thought you were gonna go. There's still a chance that we get Star Wars 1313, and I was like, yes, deep cut.
Don't
but
hurt me
you had to go. You had to go the Shizor
Well,
route,
then
so.
again, like it looks like comics have been. I don't want to say the dumping ground, but the redeeming field of leftover Star Wars ties. So maybe we'll get a 1313 comic one of these decades.
Yeah, as long as there's no Shizor, I'm fine.
One of these days, for those of you who don't know, Star Wars 1313 was a video game that had huge industry powerhouses behind it.
It's like Amy Hennig, right?
Amy Hennig was in it. There was a couple of other big heavy hitters, but it was going to be about the underworld of Coruscant. And I believe it was also supposedly going to star Boba Fett. But again, there were so many rumors about that thing. But that game was shuttered before we saw anything.
Well, we saw a pre-rendered trailer that may look like Uncharted, which was cool.
Yes. Well, that's where Amy Hennig came from. She was
that makes a lot more sense.
Uncharted 1,
it?
2, and 3. Yes. So, Anyways, I digress. We are very excited for both Crimson Reign and Hidden Empire. And in addition to that, Caleb, I am going to toss this story to you because we have a second new miniseries announced coming in 2022.
Exactly. It is going to be Star Wars: The Halcyon Legacy. Such a fun way to say. But yeah, it's going to be a 5-part mini series. It is announced it on StarWars.com today. Written by Ethan Sachs, who did Forgotten Bounty Hunters, and penciled by Will Sliney, who we've already featured on the show. I'm excited-ish. Like it's a tie-in to the new like luxury hotel suite that they're offering. So it'll be starting around March 2020. It'll be like a 5-part mini issue. They did a similar sort of thing with like Tales from Blackrock Spire, the Galaxy's Edge miniseries, right?
Yeah, so there is the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which is it was literally same author, same artist, and everything. It's the same creative team, just doing it for the Halcyon
spaceship,
the Galactic Star Cruiser, which is now it's great because even us I guess
plebes,
us less fortunate us less rich people can now afford to see what this spaceship looks like.
Yeah, it's funny. My aunt tagged me on Facebook on a post about the new Galactic Star Cruiser, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you've got to go to this," because my family and I were huge Disney World fans. And I said, "Have you looked at the price tag?" And she said, "No, how much is it?" And I said, "You don't want to know." And then she's like,
No.
"Oh, I get it now. I get it now."
Yeah, no.
like if it's the sort of thing that you usually look at price tags like a normal human being, it's too much.
Disney hotels are there's hotels, there's Disney hotels, and then there's this hotel. Like it's in its own category for. I mean, and I understand. Like it's an experience.
I cannot imagine spending thousands of dollars on a hotel for a weekend where the hotel room has no windows
and you can't leave.
And yeah,
or you can only leave during specific times.
You mean you can only take a shuttle down to the surface of Batuu in
exactly.
Exactly. But hey, I mean, there's sabacc tables and stuff, so there's that. So.
Yeah.
So yes, 2 exciting new comic miniseries coming in 2022. We love more comics. That gives us more stuff to talk about. So that is definitely something that we would look forward to. In addition to everything else, Crimson Reign coming out later this year. But that is it for our news section. So Jacob, I'm going to toss it back to you because we have quite a few titles out this week. We've had some delays. The last few weeks have been a little light, and we've caught up to it this week with 4 new titles out this week. So Jacob, what are those titles?
Yeah, and before I do jump into this, note that this is the first week for Penguin Random House delivering Marvel Comics to your local comic book store. So things have been a little shaky. It's definitely in a transition period. So hopefully things will get better soon. But anyways, here are our comics for this week. We have War of the Bounty Hunters number 5, Attack at Dawn, written by Charles Soule, pencils by Luke Ross, cover by Steve McNiven. The colorist is Niraj Menon, and the letterer is Travis Lanham. This, of course, is the last part of the War of the Bounty Hunters miniseries. However, the event itself is not done. There are still tie-ins with the ongoing issues, and we still have a few. I think just one shot with the IG-88.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not completely over, but the main story at least is wrapped up with this one.
Before we move on to the next one, can I please just say how badass this cover is with Kira? Like, holy smokes.
It's so
I am
good.
living for all of these Kira covers, and the Star Wars mainline
Star Wars
one that's coming out
17,
soon.
I think,
goodness.
or 16. Yeah.
Is
then
that
It's
the
a
one
Kira
with Leia?
Renaissance.
Yeah,
With
the
Leia
Leia
and
and
Kira.
Kira.
Okay,
Yes.
that's the one that I want.
And then
I'm most
also-
excited for that one.
Emma, just get ready because Crimson Reign is just going to be a avalanche of Kira covers.
Oh goodness.
So,
Oh, my wallet. My poor
yes,
wallet.
it's So we have that to start off. Just a little comic there. We also have Dr. Aphra number 15, Party Favors, written by Alyssa Wong, pencils by Minkyu Jung. The cover is by Sarah Pacelli. Inker is Victor Olazaba. The colorist is Rochelle Rosenberg, and the letterer is Joe Caramanga. I've mentioned a few times when we do have multiple event comics in the same week, the order does not matter in which you read them. So another great issue there. Then we also have Trail of Shadows #1, written by Daniel Jose Older, pencils by David Wachter. The cover is by David Lopez. The colorist is Giada Marchisio, and the letter is Joe Sabino. So this is, we could talk about this for a while. This is a fantastic comic. That if you're a High Republic fan, I would say this is, as much as I love all the other comics, I would say, like, in order, like in regards of like importance to the central story of the era, I would say this is probably the most important one that is out there right now. But I
would agree.
It's
like, fantastic.
I'm not like all on the like the order there, but I am definitely enjoying this comic a lot. I feel like maybe it's a little like they didn't quite tie the two, like there's two main characters. I feel like they didn't quite tie the two plots together just yet. I feel like I'm sure we'll start coming together, but I'm not 100% caught up on the High Republic. So when like she was being attacked in the alleyway, I'm like, I don't know how this is tying in, but I'm sure over the next couple of issues it'll start getting intertwined, and I'm really excited about this. I think there's a lot of really good things going on in here. This is cooking up to be a really nice thing.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Jose Older, he is killing it in everything. Yeah, this was so good. I didn't want it to end, and now I'm really sad that I have to wait another month for the next part of the story. I was telling my dad, I got him to listen to all the audiobooks of High Republic stuff. He tried the comics, couldn't really get into them, but I said, honestly, this is like a must read. It is so good. So hopefully when it finishes up, I can convince him to get on this, because this new character, the Jedi, shoot, what's his name?
Emmerich Kaftor.
Yeah, Emmerich. Yeah, he's really cool. I'm excited to learn more about him, and I'm excited to learn more about Sign as well. I agree, Caleb. Like, I was a little disappointed that their stories weren't super connected yet, but I mean, they're definitely gonna, cross paths at some point here. So, yeah, really enjoyed this. So, yeah, definitely get on this if you haven't yet. Like, you don't want it spoiled for you. You want to like experience this. I think issue to issue. Really good stuff.
Yeah, if you're like Caleb and you're not completely caught up with High Republic stuff, that's fine. Timeline wise, you definitely have to have read The Rising Storm and anything, whatever you find important before that. So Flight of the Jedi, basically, have to have read those two books. It starts around the same time as Out of the Shadows, but you don't have to have read that book. So I would say required reading going into this, probably just The Rising Storm. And Light of the Jedi, but yeah, it's wonderful book. And then lastly, we have Ghost of Vader's Castle, issue #4, Beware the Chosen One, by Kevin Scott, with pencils, colors, and the cover by Francesco Francavilla, and the letter is Sean Lee. So 4 great comic books this week. If you want to pick those up yourself on Comixology, you can find the links for those in the YouTube description, as always.
All right. That was quite a long list of comics that are out this week. But now we're going to go ahead and move on to what we're loving. And for our art of the week, we are going to actually start with Emma, who has a submission from one of these, an earlier issue of one of these titles. So Emma, what exactly do you have for us this week?
Yeah, so I have something from Tales from Vader's Castle #1. With art by Derek Charm and Chris Vinoglio. I was doing some research for an upcoming video, hint, hint, and came across this page here. I love how the lightsaber like ambiance was drawn here, like how it lights up the room and the room is dark. I love how they captured a ghost spirit in a holocron. That's such a cool idea. And also, I mean, I gotta say, like, Chopper pretending to hold out the holocron when Kanan is the one holding it up with the Force. That's cute. I love that.
Almost like a crossover with that with the After series with the Immortal.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. Rur, he was in that gigantic
the
crystal. Yeah, he was like a green. Maybe it is Rur. Maybe we got a crossover. So yeah, that was my art of the week. Caleb, what do you have?
All right. Well, this one is from Dawn of the Jedi Force Storm, issue number 3, art by Jan Duursema. I've been doing a little research for an upcoming episode. Hint, hint. But this is like a really fun dynamic sort of page, showing some like prototype lightsabers versus like essentially the dark side user versus the Sith pureborn blood. You haven't really read too much past this, but like the story is definitely a little interesting. Definitely, almost, it doesn't really feel super Star Warsy yet, but there's a lot of fun action sort of things going on. So I will hold judgment on the story, but the art is amazing. Some really great character design, some really fun action here. Definitely worth it, art wise. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, this page is really cool here. I like the guy here with the red skin. He kind of reminds me of like a Devaronian, but without the horns.
Yeah,
so that's really cool.
He's a Sith pureblood, which I don't know if made it to the new canon line yet.
I don't think so, no.
Which is fine. I said having the Sith be a race is kind of weird. I will say I do have a nitpick in that our evil dark side user here is holding his lightsaber reverse, and I just like whenever I see someone doing that, I'm like, it looks cool, I guess, but it like my internal critic is like, that's so dumb. No one does that. No one fights with their sword, with their weapon,
Ahsoka does.
Ahsoka, yeah, like what?
Well, okay, but
she has
in
2
real,
reverse grips.
okay, sorry, this is me thinking real life sort of scenarios. Like that's a terrible way to use your weapon.
It's probably not the safest way. I mean, if we're being honest.
Well, true. Fighting with lightsabers isn't safe at all.
It's true.
I think you're exuding extreme confidence when you hold your saber that way, because it's like, yeah, I could hold it this way and I could still beat you by even with the limited reach.
Just don't make any like upward shopping motions towards my head. I really can't defend against that very well. Just don't go for the head. Like we're like playground rules, okay?
That's great.
So that's my art and fun nitpicks aside.
All right, Jacob, what do you have this week?
This one is actually from a comic that came out this week, but should be no spoilers. This is from the Dr. Aphra issue. It was a Dr. Aphra 15 with, again, pencils from Mickey Jung and the colors from Rochelle Rosenberg. I just love this piece with Kira. I mean, again, can't go wrong with Kira art. But then also you got these like kind of cool like stained glass window type panels, which reminds me a lot of actually the the art in the Princess Leia miniseries.
So with the
scenes on
flashback
Naboo.
with this person.
Yeah. Yes, that was very good. So I love this great piece of art, and I just almost forgot that we have a community art submission. It feels like it's been a while, but I'll toss it over to Caleb for that one.
Oh yes, and this one is from a newcomer. I don't know if they've ever won yet before. This comes from Trails of the Shadow #1 by Rafe Gavin. And just to quickly put aside, we had some great submissions over the weeks. We might go back and do like a lightning round.
Yeah, we've also been keeping them stored for the last, I feel like, 3 weeks. So we had plenty of
options, but still keep submitting them. We love featuring you and your taste here. Again, this just came from the Trail of the Shadows, the one that came out this morning.
Yes.
It's really good. This one's pencils by David Warchter. I remember reading this and looking at this page and thinking, ooh, this could be art of the week. Like, it's not really spoilery, but it is really creepy. I just love the idea of like, being a young child, having some creepy mentor saying scary things to you as you try to fall asleep. Just everything is really captured here in like great detail. They did the right thing devoting an entire page to this artwork. So Rafe Gavin, you are a winner this week. Maybe next week too. Keep those ones coming, and we're really excited to see what we have coming through.
Yeah, this is awesome art. It totally freaked me out when I was reading it. I'm not gonna lie. And by the way, I've been meaning to ask, like, do we know what that species is of the master?
I feel like we've seen something like that before.
Yeah. Well, to the look, I guess.
Not sure. Like a zombie of like something we've seen before. I can't put my finger on it.
It just looks creepy because his face is upside down.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it kind of looks like a Quarren, but like a little off.
But
I don't know.
He needs to go to a chiropractor really badly.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So in addition to these new books, I want to take a moment and ask if we've been reading anything. I picked up Ronin yesterday. I've started that. I've been listening to Plagueis on audiobook. Corey's was really harping with that at last month or so. So I got that with that's what I've been reading in addition to these books. If you haven't already, like we said at the top of the show, we did do an interview with Emma Mieko Kandon. So I would highly encourage you to go check that out. But is there anybody else here that has anything notable to say about what they've been reading recently?
No, nothing notable. Ronin for me as well. I mean, I'll hint at my video again, I guess. I've been reading a lot of Hera stuff. That's what I'll say.
Well, I was trying to queue up a certain somebody who did put in the notes.
I did put it in it. Yeah, I was letting her go. Yeah, no, I finally finished. Hold on. Out of the Shadows, which has only taken me, well, I don't know when this come out, like, oh boy, 2 months maybe, 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, something like that.
It's been a while.
Been that long? Yeah, it's been a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've been reading a lot of other things that are not as fun as this, so I'm happy to finally finish that. I definitely enjoyed it. Like all the characters were fantastic in that book. Yeah. And this is the most far behind I've been in the High Republic like ever. Like I back after like Wave 1, I had literally read every single thing, like every comic, every insider story, I watched a Let's Play of the Tales from the Galaxy's Edge game that had the High Republic. Like I kid it all, and it's been it's been a little rough being a little behind, but I'm happy to have finished that. Now I just need to burn through Tempest Runner in like 48 hours, so then I can maybe start Ronin sometime soon.
Oh, actually, speaking of High Republic, I have the children's book that just came out.
The Showdown yeah.
It was so much fun. Like, don't sleep on these children's books, you guys. I mean, they take like 5 minutes to get into, but I meeen, Burry is the star of like both of them.
And most importantly, there are stickers. Like, that's why we're here, really. Like, who doesn't need a Starlight Beacon sticker to slap on their laptop?
Exactly. I mean, buy 2 books, get double the stickers.
It's like $5. Like, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And the new stickers, I mean, the stickers in the first book were great. The stickers in the Showdown at the Fair book, also great. So yeah, highly recommend.
Perfect.
All right.
Hey Jacob, how's Alphabet Squadron?
All right, we're going to merch or no, not merch break, a promotion for other live shows, and we'll be right back.
Lightsaber lamp, and I just like I just knocked over everything in my office so I could get this into the camera shot. I knocked one of the posters off the wall.
Anderson cover. I have heard the Anderson cover described by some friends of mine as one of their least favorite Legends covers, and I don't totally know why. Maybe it's just because Depa Billaba has this dead stare in the background.
You know what it is?
Emma, what is your art of the week this week?
Yeah, so I don't have anything as dark and depressing as that corpse, but
All right, we are back, and our main topic tonight is, we talk about reading comics, and we talk about, consuming comics digitally or whatever, but we really want to take a moment and really want to talk about the act of collecting comics and the possibility of those actually being, somewhat valuable. There are certain elements that make certain comic books valuable. So we wanted to kind of talk tonight about what it is that why you would collect comics, at least possibly in a physical form, and then what kind of separates some comics being valuable compared to other comics being valuable. So Emma, you're going to start us off tonight and kind of talk about why some people might make the decision to collect the comic books and what could be a deciding factor on making those books valuable.
Yeah, so this is going to be an interesting show for me. I think a lot of people who have listened to anything Utini, watched any videos, seen any of my backgrounds, knows that I collect a lot of things. It's true. However, Star Wars comics is something that I do not actually collect. I mean, I have some for sure. I'm a digital reader. I've mentioned that many times, but I do have a few physical comics of all the main like War of the Bounty Hunter stuff, things that I think are going to be really popular later down the line. But I've never really gotten into like grading or sort of being like competitive with myself of like getting a really important a comic. So one of the things I find really interesting about comic collecting is that first appearances of characters is like one of the biggest factors in what makes a comic valuable. So to talk about like a few examples here, some recent examples, we have Darth Krall in the High Republic number 7. So this was like really recent. So, you know, it might not be as valuable like now as it will be later on, especially if the character that appeared in the comics will become like really popular later on. So that's another thing, like time sort of factors in. I mean, like anything, I mean, if you have like the original Kenner toys from 77, they're a lot more valuable today than they were back then.
Exactly. I went into a comic store, I guess about a month ago, and like the guy had like 30 issues of that issue of the High Republic. Like, hey, there's a new Sith Lord in this one. You should buy it up because it's going to be worth something one of these days.
Not when you got that many copies.
Supply and demand, my friend.
This new Sith Lord, is this the?
Yeah, that's
I got my box next to me. I'm ready to go.
He's gonna be pulling out all the examples tonight. So another some more examples here. We have Asajj Ventress in Star Wars Jedi Mace Windu number 1 from February 2003. So that's actually really interesting. I did not know that she was. I thought that she was in the Genndy Clone Wars and then the comics, but I have been proven wrong here. This is very interesting. Have you guys read this comic?
No.
No?
I'm
No,
sure
I
Jared
found this
has.
Yeah, I was going to say I haven't gone much deeper than the current main line of the canon comics, but in my research of notable first appearances and first appearances that increase the value of the book, this was one of the first things that I found was Asajj's first appearance in comics. So yeah, I haven't read this. I need to get caught up on a lot of the Dark Horse and a lot of the old Marvel stuff from that is now Legends, but I have not had a chance to get into this yet.
Oh, this is cool. So Jacob pulled up on the screen now an image from that comic. Wow, it's interesting. Her look, like she looks mostly like what we know Asajj to look like now from TV, but she kind of has that vibe. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the first ever concept for Darth Maul. She kind of has that like face shape there.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
very
this is
interesting.
Art from Jan Duursema. There we go.
Oh, Jan Duursema. Interesting.
You'll be hearing that name a lot in the coming weeks on this show.
Hint, hint.
Yes, another hint. We love to hint. Hinting today. So another notable first appearance is Dr. Aphra in Darth Vader number 3. I imagine that this comic is quite valuable now, especially because she's been in so many comics.
I want to say it's like in the $250 range.
Exactly.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, I was looking up some comic prices just because for fun earlier, and like it's wild because Darth Vader number 1 like $9, $10, like whatever. No one cares about Darth Vader number 1. Darth Vader number 3, that's where the real juice starts to hit.
Yeah, and that's like amazingly high for such a recent comic too, right? I mean, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
Definitely. It's 6 years old now, I guess, but it is so it's not in reprint anymore. I think people are realizing I think Dr. Aphra has gotten the follow-up. Like we know Dr. Aphra is going to be around for a while. We don't know anything about this new Sith Lord Darth Krall. Like he's made one appearance and hasn't shown up again.
Well, so, he was appearance, yes, in comics, but he was mentioned in Dooku Jedi Lost, and that's kind of why I was like more that's why I was excited about it. So you never know.
as I said, you never know. Who knows whether he'll like wind up being forgotten or not talked about down the line.
The thing that leads me to believe he won't be forgotten is that Cavan wrote both of those, and the High Republic authors really like to talk about, like, bring back their own. It's referencing their own work and referencing very obscure things from Weston source games from the 90s. That's like all of like Star Wars nerd references now.
We should run a West End game one of these years.
I have to. I've been giggling to myself a little bit here. In the chat, Jared, first appearance of Naked Palps. That'd be what, Darth Vader? I mean, Dark Empire.
Dark Empire number
three.
Number three,
Was it
three or
three?
four.
I
don't remember.
I had the trade paperback, so to me it's number 1. But obviously,
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it is number 3.
We'll have to check the tally to see if we've now had more episodes mentioning Naked Palps and not mentioning.
Oh no,
Naked
yes,
Palps.
that is a fact that we have. That is the most common.
Oh, it's number 5. Wow. Okay.
Oh,
number
wow.
5. Okay.
Why did
Well,
that issue felt very long? I think because we were all uncomfortable.
We chalk up. We've had 26 episodes of the Cosmic Force, and I believe this is episode 14 or 15 of which we've mentioned Naked Palps. So
It has to be.
keeping the tradition alive, Jared, and we thank you for bringing that up in the chat. And yes, Jared, your work here is
It's like,
done, but
all
we do want you to stick around and
Yes.
and hear the what else we have to say. I know as far as a recent comic book goes, and we'll talk about the value of it a little bit later, but I do know that Star Wars Kanan Jarrus number 6 is fairly popular and is fairly high valued because it is the first appearance of Sabine Wren. And you'll notice that it is the first appearances that drive the value up. Not Sabine doesn't have her own book, but Aphra does. Aphra's book isn't as and title isn't as valued as her first appearance, and that kind of is what drives some of those values up. And in addition to that, there's also the different covers. There are certain covers that can dictate the value of the comic. Emma, why don't you talk about some of the different variant covers that a book can get?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different categories for variant covers. There can be like additional or guest artists on a series, or there can be like convention or event exclusives, like, for example, something at Celebration or a Comic Con.
Or the 50th anniversary or celebration event sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. And then there's tie-in covers. So what would that be, like something with crossovers? Like
yeah, there have been times when
sometimes they'll do like
Star Wars
themed after the movies that are coming out. Like it'll just be like
either that or there's different toys or like a Calvin and Hobbes sort of theme. Or
that's like Scotty Young type stuff.
Yeah.
That's just like his art style looks like very Calvin and Hobbes.
Okay.
Bill Watterson.
Interesting. So we also have incentive variants, which are offered directly to distributors and local comic book shops to encourage larger orders, and they're usually very limited. So am I correct in saying that you have to order a certain the shop has to order a certain number of comics in order to get
it'll be
this
like
variant?
a 1 in 25 or 1 in 50. So for however many 25 issues you get one of these incentive variants, and then they'll charge whatever they feel like depending on the store. And
that's what helps drive those up, because they obviously print those in a limited amount of quantity, because you're forcing, one, it's not as easily available to the public, and two, you're forcing the distributors and the comic stores to kind of spend more money because you're trying to up their order numbers in order to get those limited quantities. So they're usually a little bit higher. Cover price on a comic is usually $3, $4, $5 for maybe an oversized. These variants, you're talking anywhere between $19 and $30, or even $40, depending on your local comic store.
Wow, that is that's pretty crazy. So the last thing that we're going to talk about here, about like why people collect and what makes a book valuable, is complete stories or mini arcs. So a few examples here. We have the Star Wars 2015. The main line from 2015 has a total of 75 numbered issues. Of course, this does not include the annuals or any one-shots or anything like that. So obviously, like, if you're going to be committed to a series, That's a lot of comic books right there. 75, that's pretty crazy. And then so another series, Darth Vader 2015, had 25, and same thing as 2017's Dark Lord of the Sith. So that's more manageable if you're gonna like go all in on one series. And then if we're talking about like today's titles, the ones that started in 2020, so the Star Wars mainline, Bounty Hunters, Dr. Aphra, Darth Vader from 2020. I think I got all of them.
Mhm.
Those have about 14 to 15 issues out right now, depending on like when exactly they started, and some things got a little delayed because of the pandemic. So if you want to collect the 2020 issues, we're not super duper far in. And then there's a miniseries, of course. Those are usually between 1 and 6 issues. So we have a lot of miniseries that have either come out or are coming up. So War of the Bounty Hunters, this was like really when I like decided to start collecting ish. And I wouldn't even, put like a hard definition on it. I knew that War of the Bounty Hunters was going to be a big event, and I could definitely commit to a 5-issue miniseries, getting them physically, instead of like wondering how many issues I'm going to have to commit myself to. So, yeah, very cool stuff. Do you guys have any complete series or any miniseries that you guys are proud of or anything like that?
I have Caleb's favorite Lando as
Ooh,
as
nice.
an individual issue
Oh, wow.
miniseries. So I've got that. Yeah, and when we talk about value, like there's two different values here. Like the individual books or the individual issues that have the first appearances, those are going to drive the value up from a quote unquote official standpoint. If you were to get those graded, which we'll talk about in a little bit, those individual issues kind of go up. When you're talking about these complete series, that's when you're kind of, the second hand, you're on the Mercaris, you're on the Facebook marketplaces. You get the complete set, and people want to charge a little bit more for the entire series. There's not really, from a official collector's position, there's not really a value on the entire book. But there's just two different levels. We're talking about two different levels of value here when it comes to individual issues and the whole books. Do you guys have what any books any series that you have in completion?
I didn't start collecting physically Star Wars until about the time we started the show. So I got the High Republic and lots of variants through the current of all the High Republic series. So I guess this is cheating, but so I will say a quick thing we haven't mentioned: trade paperbacks are almost never gonna hold any value outside of MSRP. Like they will never appreciate,
Yes.
except with there's a few exceptions, like older stuff maybe. The TIE Fighter miniseries in canon that like didn't get reprinted at all. So that and then I think some hardcovers go for can get a little more expensive, and then omnibuses because they only print these once. So I got technically I have I got the entire KOTOR series in collected. It's just in a hardback
and autographed.
Yeah,
now,
it's
right?
also signed by John Jackson
flex.
Miller. So
If you're gonna flex completely and show off the autograph too.
Oh man, so jealous about that. And he tweeted at you too, like after he signed it.
He did
right?
tweet it. I was the first person that had got it signed at a convention. Like he signed like a bunch online for if you bought it from a certain like comic book store. Like Freddie and Jared got theirs that way, but I went to the first comic book convention he had visited in the COVID era, and he signed my thing. So there we go.
Nice.
Awesome.
But yeah, I don't.
Caleb, do you have anything?
Yeah.
Like the only thing I don't even have a I don't have a full collection, but I think I showed this off before. I did get the Jabba the Hutt because
There
this is
you
the
go.
first appearance of
that's
Viva
so
Lom
cool.
Pop.
Yes.
So that was the place where it's like, hey, do you want to buy this cool Darth Kroll thing? I'm like, no, I got my girl here. She's going to be more important than your Sith Lord. Trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will,
So when you start, go ahead, Jacob.
oh yeah. I was just like, well, okay. You go first. Mine's a little bit different. So.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's when you start to really potentially drive up your value is when you because Caleb, is that a variant cover as well? I don't
I think
believe
so.
that's
I
it's
think
like
that is a variant color.
I think it's like the
That is a
cover.
variant.
Oh, it
yeah.
does say variant right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, sure.
so you start mixing
first
first appearances and variant covers, and that's where you start to now, you start to drive the value up. Now,
They're
modern comics,
multiplicative.
yes, modern comics are a little bit. it's a little bit harder for them to collect value just because there are so many of them. Like Caleb, you mentioned, your local comic store was holding up a stack of Darth Crawl, High Republic #7s. When there's that much, that's when it starts to be hard for it to really start to appreciate.
I was about to say, I thought we learned this lesson in 90s comics, with, like when they start to reboot every single thing, but like, surely everyone will want Youngblood #1 in like 30 years, right?
I will say, I believe Caleb's variant is a B cover, so like not really any. So there's for variants, there's like all the like retailer variants and stuff like that. There's also just like what's called the B cover, which is like it's the same exact price, and the retailers can get as many of them as they want. So I think that might be what he has.
I paid normal price for this one. So
one thing I will say, so before we get too far away from it, we talked about like first appearances. I haven't used this in a long time, but it still looks like it's still going strong. There's this app and this website called Key Collector, which I found very useful when I was into comics
earlier today.
Yeah, when I was a lot more into comics, it's really great. You can go like basically break down into different series or like categories. Like there'll be like a category for Superman or something like that. So rather than just like Action Comics Volume 1. So like I clicked on the High Republic and it takes me to this page. And it shows me all of the High Republic. It has all of them as key issues because they're constantly adding new characters to these. But like, there you go. Issue 7, first appearance of Darth Crawl. You get some kind of vague pricing estimates there. So not that much for this one, obviously. It's basically cover price. But if I was to go down to Rise of Kylo Ren, I can see that issue 3, we got the first appearance of Avar Kriss. That's $30. So it's kind of a nice way, and I loved it when I was in the comic book stores. Like when I used to like go through back issues all the time, because like I'd like pop open like Action Comics on my phone, and I just sort of like start going through them and see which key issues I could find. So that was always a fun thing for me to do. But yeah, I not a sponsor, but yeah, I enjoy Key Collector.
Yeah, I found that site earlier today when I was doing some research, and I was able to when we get down to these specific pricing and evaluation, that was my source for all that information.
Nice.
So it's interesting that you brought that up. I'm glad I used a popular tool. So you now have these books, you've collected these books, and you want to make sure that you keep them, safe and keep them, as pristine as possible. And the easiest way to do that is they offer them to you right there in the local comic store, and that is these little bags and boards. What these do is they keep them dust free. They keep them nice and sturdy. They usually offer it at a nominal fee. I think it's like 10 cents, 15. I think my comic book store offers them for like 15 cents. At least if you want, I'm going to get real nerdy here for a minute.
Oh, I'm ready.
There's two different kinds of bags that you want to keep an eye on. The most common, all of my books here, they're all in the same book. They're either out of polyethylene or they're polypropylene, and it's very common. It's a thinner book. It's a thinner plastic. You also want to make sure that if you are just buying them online, comics have changed size over the last 50 or so years. The Golden Age comics were a little bit different size than the current age. So if you're buying them from Amazon or if you're buying them kind of wholesale, you want to keep that in mind. But in addition to that, they also have Mylar material bags. Those are the ones. Those are a little bit heavier duty, and those are the ones that you really want to put your high end books in. And then really for most of these, all I do is they come like this, and they got a little flap up here, and you're able to just kind of fold them down. If you want to reread them or not, sometimes people decide to tape them. That's completely up to you. I normally tuck them in because none of my books are that expensive, and I like to kind of pop them open again and reread them. So I don't care about necessarily taping them down. Some additional variants. There are a couple of High Republic books. I've got a box down here that I'll pull up here in a second.
Yeah.
That I do have them taped. But that kind of, so you can kind of tape them or just kind of tuck the book in. But in addition to, so the bags of boards, they keep them sturdy. They keep them water resistant. They keep them dust resistant. But you also want to make sure that when you're storing your comics, you store them in a regularly air conditioned place. So a closet or a room that's in your house. You don't want to keep them in the attic. And you kind of want to keep them. Oh, messing with the mic. In one of these. This is the short box
time.
Yes, this is the short box. They have a long box. If you listen to the audio version, you hear in our open, long boxes. Long boxes probably
They're
2/3
like-
of this.
I think they're like double. They're huge. Like long boxes is like when you have a like dedicated room to your comics. It's very
Yes, I
they are
have
not
a long
easy to
box
store.
over there. I have a long box over here, and it is at least twice the size of this.
And when they're full, they are so heavy that you have to be very careful on what sort of shelving you might use for them, if any.
Yes.
Oh God.
Yeah, I mean it's
So-
paper's dense.
So if I
True.
take this out, for those of you, that's how many comics fit in a short box.
How
It
many would you
says-
estimate you
it-
have in there?
I think
So
it's like
it claims to be 100. I probably have more than that in here.
Oh.
The long boxes again claim to fit 300. But again, depending on how tight you want to fit, how tight you pack them in there, and how many additional books you have in there, that can give or change. But doing this keeps it from light damage, because over time pages wither, they kind of fade. So by keeping them in a box, it allows you to protect it from the light. And something that I learned, because this is my Star Wars box, which is a box that I keep, that I go into regularly, you don't want to store it this way, because that damages the books down here on the bottom. So
Oh.
you want to make sure if you store them upwards, and you kind of have like most of the books, all the titles are right there. I've got so many in here I can't even pull them out. You kind of keep them where the standing straight up, so you can kind of see them and kind of thumb through them. But Jacob, do you have you've got just the one? I know you and I are the ones that are mainly are the physical readers here.
I have one Star Wars box and I have 4 other boxes of other comics. So
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
I will say, and a nice thing not with my Star Wars one, but with my other ones, you can buy like little tab dividers basically, so you can have like little, hey, flip to this tab. That's my Superman.
Yes.
That's my Batman. I want to go back a little bit and talk a little bit more very briefly about bags and boards and the different varieties. So Tyler mentioned I put all mine in My Lights. That's the more expensive one. Polypropylene, polyethylene, they're really fine unless like the only thing is they degrade over time. It takes like several years. I think it's like a decade or something like that. They last quite a while, but they will start to like give off like gases as they degrade, which can damage your stuff. So Mylars basically don't degrade at all. So I mean, sure, that's great for the environment. It's fine. But these like that's like the standard. And yeah, Tyler mentioned some comic stores, some don't do it, honestly. Well, you might buy it at a counter. I had a really nice one in Chicago where I could say, hey, I want Mylars, I want halfbacks, or I want polypropylene, whatever. And then, yeah, a big thing is boards. Mylars is a kind of a big step up in investment quality. Like, they're not cheap comparatively. I would say the best bang for your buck upgrade is halfback acid-free boards. You can just Google that phrase. It was halfback acid-free comic book boards. Make sure you get the modern size, like Tyler said. Gold Age comics are not the same size. They're not that much more expensive, but they're a little sturdier. They're like boards you get from the comic book stores are very flimsy. These actually give it a little bit more rigidity, and they are acid-free, so they won't leach anything into your books. So again, I would say if you're gonna make an upgrade in your collecting habits, I think that's the best bang for your buck one to do.
I am learning so much right now.
We're on really nerdy shit right now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm about
we're
to,
deep
like, go on
diving. We're deep
Amazon and
diving
buy-
here.
Buy some
got-
acid-free boards.
Looking at
So-
Amazon right here, and it says it has a pH of 8.5.
I
so,
should have
like,
gotten Timothy
that
to
details.
generate me like bags and boards, Amazon affiliate codes to throw in the description or something.
No,
Should
legitimately, yeah. I know. I think I need to get like a short box because you
It
guys would be
helps.
so disappointed in me.
It
with
really
How
does.
I'm storing. Does anybody want to guess how
Are
I'm
they
keeping my
are they
comic
on a
books right now?
bookshelf?
No.
Are they just
Oh,
in
Floor.
a pile on your floor?
Oh,
Yes.
at
Yeah.
least have them.
This
That's why I buy. I hope my wife isn't able to hear me because I buy these things twice because I buy the books because I read them and and I enjoy them and I put them in the box, and then I buy the trade paperbacks because the trade paperbacks
that's okay.
look-
Yeah, that's
look
normal.
nice on the shelf, but it's the same story. And usually I'm not unless it's a round table for this show. I don't read the trade paperbacks because I've already read them on the issues. So I'm literally just doing it.
Yeah, it's like I
don't have any room back here.
Okay, that's actually very relatable because like I get all of the like digital comics because I like to read digitally. I like the guided view thing. And then I'll like get, the main War of the Bounty Hunters because I want to have them, but I never open them to read them.
Yeah.
So we do have a question in the chat. Matt in the chat is saying thoughts on using the hard plastic short boxes.
I don't have anything
Jacob,
against.
do you
I
Yeah.
mean, I've definitely seen them. I don't have anything against it. I mean, obviously they're more expensive than cardboard boxes. But they have their purpose. I don't know. I think if I was
if you're going to be
moving is a big
them,
deal. Yeah.
Yes.
I would-
If like
yeah.
for mine's stuck in a corner right next to this little gap right here is where my short boxes are.
Mhm.
And so I don't move them that often. So for me, I don't, once they go in there, they're pretty much in there, and I don't access them again. If I were to be moving them, or if they were to be accessed more, I might consider going into the hard plastic short boxes. But
I'm sure they also stack a lot nicer. Like
Yes,
I stack,
agreed.
I'll stack a couple, but like at a certain point, like the cardboard's like not the best. So you're not gonna I'm not gonna put 4 high. Like that's insane. But you could probably get away with it with the plastic boxes.
Yeah. So good question in the chat there. So, all right, we've talked about what makes a book expensive or potentially valuable. We talked about how to store them temporarily, but let's say, Jacob, that I have a book that seems to be going. Let's say I did pick up somehow, some way, the Clone Wars issue #1, which introduced Ahsoka and Rex, and I want to go ahead and get it officially certified in what we call grading.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that process, about how we get a book graded and what the process is, and kind of what all that entails?
Yeah, so I'm gonna this is gonna be okay. We were going nerdy. This is like I'm gonna now I'm just straight lecturing to the chat, and I feel bad. But okay, so grading a book, it's a way you can lock in a value for it, more or less, or at least you're gonna lock in the quality of it and make it more of a almost a collectible asset than a comic book, because you can't read it anymore once you do that.
Nope.
So for a starter, there are 2 companies primarily that do grading. There's CBCS, I believe. That's fine. And then there's CGC. They're both pretty comparable for quality wise, but CGC is the industry standard. If you go to buy a comic book graded online, it's probably going to be CGC. And those are just 2 companies that do this. It's there's lots of different companies that do lots of different collectible grading. There's companies that do cards like Beckett or is it PSA or whatever, and then you can get Funkos graded. Anything with a collectible market, you can get something probably graded or verified.
Just so in case you're not sure, what is being graded? What do you mean by getting graded?
Yes, basically I here. Okay, I got Bausch, the one shot. I want let's say in most cases, if you're gonna send something to get graded, it's either already very valuable. That's about it, really. Don't send your nothing book, or I'll get to a second caveat later, but basically it's a valuable book and you want to lock in some value for it. So I say, hey, CGC, tell me how good shape this is. So I mail it off to them. They have a bunch of professionals look at this and say, they look at all different qualities. They'll look if there's any nicks or bends or tears or off coloring or printing issues or maybe issues with the stables. There's a whole laundry list of criteria they look. They're basically looking for a perfect book. And it's on a 0.1, it's a 0.1 scale of 0 to 10, but basically 0 to 9.8. You don't see anything past a 9.8. And the higher it is, the better the value you get for it. For anything modern, I would say anything in the past, I would say at least 10 years, if you are sending it in, it better be a 9.4 or you're wasting your money. At least a 9.4. If it's within, if you got it recently, it better be a 9.8 or you're wasting your money. Because, for, I don't know, let's say High Republic number 10. If you send in something and it's not a 9.8, which is again effectively the highest it can go,
because you are paying, because that's something I want to.
Yeah, it's
you are
expensive.
paying for it.
Yeah.
Yes, you are paying this company to say, lock this book into a hard plastic shell and tell me how much it's worth. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a free service.
So yeah, again, so if you send something that's below 9.8, that's like new, that's a problem, because I can go to any comic book store probably and find a 9.8 book if I try hard enough, or at least like a 9.6. So that's like, you need like a pristine copy to justify doing it for anything super modern. Basically, but yeah, you send it in, they tell you, they like look it over, they tell you how nice it is, they lock it in a plastic slab and put it at the top, a bunch. It's a nice little like label, basically saying it's High Republic number 7, maybe the first appearance of this comic or this character. Here's who wrote it, or drawed it, whatever. And then it'll have a big grade in the corner saying like 9.8. And at that point, that's it. You have a plastic slab. You obviously cannot open it and read it. It's a sealed product, and that is pretty much a collectible piece now, because someone wants to pay to have a very nice, like verified, nice copy of a thing. So it's kind of a complicated process. There are two ways to do it. You can either spend money to mail it to, well, you're spending more money regardless, but pay to mail it to them, and they'll mail it back when they're done. Or you can go to a convention, and almost every comic book, or even like non-comic book, but collectible, like nerdy type conventions will have something like that there. They'll have representatives like that run through like a local comic book store that you can also just give it to them. So like go like lose some of the cost of it, but it's still $70 to $100 per book. It's not cheap. And they will send it in for you. And it's also like a 6+ month time turnaround. So you're without your book for a while. So those are like kind of the main ways to do it. So again, like it needs to be a valuable book, or you're wasting your money to send it in.
That is
some
way
of the
more
things-
expensive than I imagined.
Yes,
Yeah.
and some of the things to consider, like you don't want to read this. Like if you think that's something that you are going to want to send into grade, you don't want to crease the spine. Like creasing the spine, blemishes in the book, making sure all the images are centered, and like that is kind of what goes into the grading element of it. Anytime we have oil on our fingers, whether we realize it or not. So the more interaction you have with a book, the higher chance you have of ruining that grade. So anytime that you think that there's a book that you think is going to be valuable, buy two. And what I mean by that is buy one that you're going to read and you're going to look through and you're going to thumb through and you're going to get your greasy fingers all over, and then take the other one and put it in a Mylar, or put it in a hard book, or put it in somewhere that protects it before you go through the process of sending it in to be graded, because it's just the more you handle it, the higher chance you have of really damaging your book.
Yeah, if there's like a visible physical defect, it's not a 9.8. And even then, there are things that your naked eye will not pick out, but a grader will. So it's a tricky thing. The nice thing is if you go to a convention and the people that work there are nice, they're not official CGC employees, they're just a representative. They'll probably like look it over for you, like especially if it's something new. They're like, yeah, you might, like, I'm thinking you might get like a 9.4 on this, and that's like super helpful, especially because like at a comic convention, if it's something like that came out that month, you could probably run to a booth and find a better copy.
And one of the things that I find interesting, I've never gotten a book graded myself, but some of the things that I find interesting is they keep a record.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was CGC, but I was looking on one of the websites earlier, and for highest valued books, and it will sit there, and again, because I've used this before, the Clone Wars #1, which is the introduction of Ahsoka, and
they know how
Rex.
many of everything are in circulation now.
100%. They will sit there and tell you there are 0 10.0s, there are 1 9.8, there are 5 9.7s, and that number helps in a certain extent, kind of determine the evaluation of it and how much value it is. And I don't know if it's the case in comic books. So correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob, but I do know, like, for trading cards, whether it's Pokemon cards, whether it's baseball cards, you do have the possibility of an option of regrading. So if you get an issue and you're told, oh, this is a 9.8 or 9.6, and you're like, great, I'm gonna go send it in, and then you get it back and it's given an 8.8, you do have the option to get it regraded. You still have to pay, like, you go through the whole process again, and you have to pay for it again. But there's a little bit of gray area in what kind of determines, that's one of the drawbacks of grading, is it's kind of sort of opinion based, but the opinion, it's subjective, but it's a very tight subjective window in what it determines a high grade on.
So going back to the whole, like, talking about at conventions, like what you mentioned, you can actually, if you have a slab and, like, you think the grade is not right, you can pay, like, a lot of places you can kind of do it yourself. It's a little, it's not easy, and you can risk damaging it, but they will do what's called a slab cracking, where they basically will break the shell open and you can just send it back in. Again, that costs money. Another thing you can do is, to help try and get a better grade, if you have a book that, like, looks perfect, but it, like, if you look at the edge and it's a bit wavy, you can pay to have them press it, and that could help your grade as well. It's like $15. But the last thing I want to talk about with conventions, and this is the other thing that throws a wrench in, only get hella expensive books graded, and that's signatures. And it's a little bit more complicated than you might think. You might think, I get it signed, I send it in, we're good. No, it is not that easy, because they will not verify the signature for you. So here's a great example. I got this Mike Mayhew High Republic #7 Darth Krall
I have
variant.
that one as well.
I got it signed. I can never get this graded, at least how I would like to, because for a CGC to verify a signature, and they put a nice special header that says it's a signature series verified, like, this is a legit signature, they have to watch it get signed. So basically what in practice this means is, you go to a comic book convention, you go to the CGC booth, you say, I have this, I want it, I know the artist is over there, I want to go get it signed. They walk there with you, wait in line with you, watch it get signed, and then they take it back and send it off. And that's it. So that is the only way. There are other things which actually, the very fortuitous that this just came out. Oh God, where'd it go? I think it was in Slack.
So did you get this the COA, the certificate of authenticity?
Yeah, I will touch on that.
Okay.
So yeah, there's actually right now, very, very timely. There's a event right now with CGC Comics where you can send something in and get it signed by Charles Soule. So that's like the other way, is you can send it directly to them, not the author. Like, you can't do that, but to CGC. And sometimes they'll have events. You can go get something signed by him, and that's a way to get it verified.
Shout out to Timothy. Shout out to Timothy for posting this in our Slack channel here.
So
yes, thank you, Timothy.
But yeah, so Tyler was mentioning a COA. Yeah, all Mike Mayhew stuff, if you get signed on his website, comes with a certificate of authenticity. That does not matter. They don't care. They're like, you can fake one of those too easily. We're not gonna. So literally, you have to have it watched. They have to physically. The CGC person has to stare your comic book down while you sign it, while it gets signed, and then directly from there send it off. That's the only way. So
that's insane. Like, I remember when War of the Bounty Hunters first came out, Midtown Comics, I think, was doing a signing event, and I have the first issue of War of the Bounty Hunters signed by Charles Soule and the director's cut signed by Charles Soule. So, like, that's pretty crazy. Like, how strict they are with the signing.
You can get it signed, or you can get it graded even if it's signed like not legitly. So basically, if you get a regular book signed, no signature or anything, or regular book graded, no signature, blue label. A verified signature, yellow label. I believe if it's a unverified signature, they give it a green label. I think in the past the signature actually used to count as like a defect, but I don't think they do that anymore. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't really look into that because I would never do it. But yeah, like, for instance, like, again, with this, if I wanted to get, like, the right move would have been for me to buy it not signed, find Mike Mayhew at a convention, get it signed there, and then get it graded so I could get a yellow label.
And now I also want to clarify something. When you say they won't grade a signature. They'll still grade the book,
Yeah,
but they're not adding the value on if the book is a 9.8 and it's signed. In theory, you would think, oh, it's even the signature increases the value.
yeah,
But
but
CGC,
it doesn't.
what CGC does, it'll still grade the book, but it'll basically acts as if the signature isn't there, or if it is, as Jacob just said, it's kind of a defect to the quality of the book itself.
Yeah, so here's I pulled up their website. You got the blue label, that's the standard, that's just your regular book. You have the yellow label, which is a verified signature. You have green, which is again usually a unverified signature. So that usually does not add value to it. And then purple, no one really deals with this stuff. But purple is a restored. That's usually for like old stuff where maybe someone did a restoration job on the pages, or like maybe restapled it or something like that. So those are like the main things you're concerned with. So it's very complicated. Basically, it's if you're just a person that loves Star Wars comic books, don't worry about this. Like this is like
Right.
Is really for I want to make money. Kind of I want to have a more intrinsic value and money tied into my Star Wars collection, which is
Yes.
not knocking the people that do that. I did send in a book for CGC for fun, kind of recently. Or not recently, like 3 months ago. So hey, next year it'll show up on my art of the week or something. But we're praying for a 9.8.
And that's a good segue into our last segment of the night, which is valuable Star Wars comics. And Caleb, you kind of put in quotes here, what is worth the most, and it kind of, it's a subjective topic, and you kind of spelled it out, in the notes that you have here. So what exactly, in your words here, what exactly does make a comic valuable?
Like, to remind you of your Econ 101 class, it's all about supply and demand. The more rare it is, the more value it will be. And we've already touched on pretty much all of these. Signed copies, especially if they can be verified, very important. Variant covers, because they're more rare. Limited editions, first appearance of new characters, issues numbers ones. Those are big factors when it comes to these collection sort of things. So obviously the most expensive Star Wars comics that you can spend your hard-earned money on, or maybe not hard-earned money, maybe you win the lottery and want to invest, all those, like the most expensive ones, usually come from the 77 run. There's some like wild stuff here that I saw while researching this. Like the most expensive Star Wars comic was Star Wars the 77, the first volume number one edition was sold for $27,000. So $27,000 at 27000. That's like more than my entire car. Like that's you can just insane amount. So here's the weird thing.
Speaking of Star Wars collectibles, the price of a car. We got audio listeners.
Yes.
We got Chaos Rising. The out of print. This is just a flex episode for Jacob. The out of print Chaos Rising, which most highly sold for $2,000 on eBay.
We
Oh
you
will,
can
God,
get- you-
what?
I will use this to plug our Discord again, because we had a lot of fun in Discord when that came out, because dropping sales of eBay sales and Amazon was it all eBay sales?
Yeah, it
and
was,
private sales?
mostly Mike just throwing eBay links in for a while.
Yes.
It was fun because so the book hovered around 350 for a while because it came out like a year before the greater, or I can't remember the timeline, but it was out for a while. It like originally sold for 150 if you bought it new. Then on eBay resale market was like 350 for a while, and then when the greater good one was announced, it like jumped
to the moon.
so high. It was like 900, 1200, and then the height. I think only one ever sold at 2000, but there's still quite a few that sold at the 1750.
Yes.
Wow.
There were multiple listings, and that's a key word there. Listings.
You got to
for
check out the
2000.
sold items. That's the important.
Yes. So, sorry to segue out of your segment, Caleb.
Absolutely, but I just want to just because like comics are weird, this is such a fascinating little thing. So Star Wars 77 issue number 1, there's actually 2 versions. One that Marvel
the
sold
newsstand.
for 30 cents, and then another one they sold for 35 cents. There is no difference between them. They just decided to sell the 35-cent one in select markets to see if people would still buy it. They did.
It was back then there was like you had like newsstand variants which were like
Yep.
it's again the same exact thing but like slightly different, and but the thing is there were different amounts produced between the two,
Yeah.
which
So
value.
yeah, so your 30-cent one like will sell for $1,000, but the 35-cent one, that's the one that sold for nearly 30 times the value, $27,000, just because someone in the 70s spent an extra nickel on it. Well, not necessarily because they even spent an extra nickel on it, just because Marvel decided to sell the same comic for more money in that market. It's just kind of wild how much that tiny cent increase has, infinitely experienced or exponential that value.
And you're never gonna know. Like, I mean, that's some of the things that I think is hard to comprehend for those that are collectors. I mean, I collect all of my things because I enjoy them. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to myself. Like, there are a couple of Funkos here that I still have the boxes because I'd like to think maybe sort of one day, probably not, they might be worth more than $15. But it all depends. Like, I'm not a certain Funko isn't going to be more expensive because it's got a smudge on it. Like, it's going to be those little defects that you don't even realize, those differences that you don't in the moment you don't even know is a big thing. That's what's going to be, if it ever is, a determining factor. And because these books in the 70s were so few and far between, because as Caleb said, there wasn't a lot of supply, that's what jacked up these prices.
Yeah.
The same difference today. If a book was sold for $3.99 and another book was sold for $4.99, it's not going to have the same effect as it did in the 70s because there's just so much more in supply.
Exactly. Matt Moore in the comics pointed out, he doesn't have a source, so I'll assume it's true, that only 1,500 copies of the 35-cent edition were ever made. So, that's kind of crazy to think that, of those 1,500, some are still being circulated and are still around. So, that is such a small amount that when you think about how big Star Wars has become, that makes sense as to why it's so valuable.
So you got a couple of listings here that you said you went on eBay.
Yeah, you just go on eBay and you can like look up some of the ones right now. The most expensive one that we've talked about it is a 2008 Star Wars Clone Wars #1. So this one is a signed variant cover and the first appearance of Ahsoka. So if you haven't read the notes, what would you estimate that's going for?
I've definitely read the notes.
I've already read the notes, so I can't.
I will stop reading the notes.
Wait,
I would not have predicted.
Say that again. I haven't read the notes.
All right, it is the Star Wars comic Clone Wars from the 2008 Clone Wars #1. It is signed. It is a variant cover, and it is the first appearance of Ahsoka
and Rex.
Ahsoka and Rex, and it's signed. Oof. I'm gonna say 1,500.
That's pretty close.
That is about what I would have guessed too if I hadn't read the notes.
Pretty close. It is 19,000, so 1,900. So
1,900. Okay.
Exactly. Plus $650 for shipping and handling.
I mean, 20,000.
Wow.
Yeah. She said 1,500, and your
Oh,
notes.
sorry.
Oh, it's 19,000.
Oh, sorry, 19,000. Yeah, I apologize. Well,
is it sold?
English is weird.
Yes, that is sold.
Yeah, 19,000. Plus,
I want to
that's at
know.
$650 for shipping and handling.
Who has a spare 20,000 kicking around to buy a comic book, and can I meet them and can I have a look?
Right? I can't buy my Funkos for $15 because I pre-sell them for, or I got tempted to pre-sell them or pre-order them for $9, and I refuse to pay the $6 extra dollars to get them from Target. I refuse. There's no way I'd be able to go for a $19,000 comic book.
Jared pointed out in chat, I think you just confirmed that this is the same variant cover, that the variant art was done by Dave Filoni.
I believe so. Yes.
Yep.
So that makes it even kind of crazier. Also on listing, because we talked about, there's a Star Wars 77 issue number 3, which is rated as a 9.6. Emma, any guesses?
Is this a first appearance of anyone?
Maybe I didn't see it listed there on
Okay.
the listing, but it's halfway through the first Star Wars movie, so maybe first appearance of, I don't know, Tarkin. I don't know.
I'm gonna guess 1,000.
1,000.
Yes.
You're again off by a factor of 10. It is 11,500.
You said
What makes it so
said Star Wars number 3?
valuable?
Star Wars number 3.
I don't even think it's a first appearance. I just looked it up. I
Yeah,
don't-
but it is the 35-cent version of it.
Oh,
But here's the
Oh.
big thing: it also has free shipping and handling, so that's really nice.
that's
That
a
makes it
steal
worth it
then.
right
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
And then I got one more here. This one is a much more recent one. This one is Vader Down #1 variant cover featuring Jackson.
So
The
I have
green-
to ask, was this the stencil or was this the full art? Because
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to find right now. I have the full art version. in
This
the box.
I know
I think
the
it's-
sketch one. I probably.
I'm pretty sure it's the,
the
sketch one.
one's very expensive.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
it's
so-
that one. So Darth Vader #1, Vader Down #1. So I think that was in 2016, I think. But it's a variant cover featuring Jackson.
So that is so this is Vader Down #1, and this is the full art version. And if you
That's Jackson?
if you come to me in the solo,
yeah.
you
You
can
see the little bunny ears or the leppy
Oh
ears
my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
right in front of your
okay,
face.
Put it straight in front of your face.
There we go. That is Vader fighting.
Oh
perfect.
yeah.
There he is. There he is.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
This is not the expensive version because
Okay.
it is the full art. There is a sketch version.
Yes, and this
That-
one was the sketch version. It was in
Yes,
black and
okay.
white.
All right, I'm gonna guess because this feels very obscure.
Oh, Chip Zdarsky did this. Okay.
And I've been lowballing everyone. So I'm gonna go 5,000.
You went over it. This one is 3,500 plus, bonus points if you can guess the shipping.
595.
897.
897.
Like super expensive shipping. I hope they decide to put at least some tissue paper in there. But yeah, $3,500 for that edition. That's the one, right?
Wow.
I saw. Yep. For Vader Down #1. Who
I
knew
guess
that would be
that's-
expensive?
I guess that's not a
Crazy.
true sketch cover because Jackson's in color, which is kind of really cool.
Yeah, that's a different version than the one that I've seen. Now the one that Jake and I are talking about is just a penciled version with no art or no color added to it. That one has also been listed as highly collectible. That one was a unique cover, so that one looks pretty cool too. Yeah, a lot of the notable, the 1977 runs, there have so many because they're obviously the first appearances of people. So Caleb, I was able to find
Yeah.
a couple of I call them notable collectible comics. A lot of them are coming from the 1977 run.
Exactly. Like, probably the biggest one is Star Wars #42. Emma, any guesses on whose first appearance is in that one? I know I'm picking on you, but
It is a very theme appropriate
It's
question.
it's a cover that was actually recently redone for a comic book event that just ended. That's probably
Boba
way
Fett.
too big. Yeah,
Boba Fett.
There we go.
actually, it is 42 was the first
Wait,
comic appearance.
Boba Fett.
Boba
Boba
Fett.
Fett. Where?
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. Where? Right here in issue 42. This one sold for about 6,000. I said we mentioned the 35-cent variations on the first couple of Star Wars. There's Star Wars #107, which was the final issue of the series. That was about 2,300. We mentioned the Clone Wars one. Another weird one was Kanan #6. Because that's the first comic appearance of Sabine Wren. That
Yeah.
one's is relatively expensive for something so new. You can pick it up for about just under $700.
And I put this in here because I wanted to add in a little bit of a word of caution because this book, I've seen a lot of this book and a lot of this series available in eBay's or Facebook marketplaces or Mercari listings. And so that price, that approximate evaluation I took from, I don't know if it was CGC, but it was a graded website. And it is that is the 9.8 graded pricing.
Right.
And so something that you have to keep in mind, especially when you're buying from these secondhand people, is please do your own research, because a 9.8 in a slab book is worth $675. The book that I have down here that is kept in a polyurethane plastic in a cardboard box that has been sitting up, on its side for the last 6 months, that is not worth $675. But people who are looking to trade or sell these books, they are not expecting you to do your own research. They are finding the highest dollar value that they can slap on that on these books, and then they sell the entire title. I don't normally see Kanan number 6, but I have seen a number of the entire Kanan series, and they're trying to sell it for $500, $700, or whatever it is. But I please, this is my only word of caution. This is, collecting is fun. Collecting can be expensive, and we are all enablers in this community. But please, if you're going to collect, make sure you do your own research and make sure you know the difference between a 9.8 graded Kanan valued at $675 and me listing Kanan on Mercari for $500. You don't know what's just because I say it's from a non-pet, non-kid, non-smoking house doesn't mean that I'm telling the truth. And so when you're finding, if you're looking to spend a lot of money on secondhand private sellings and private listings, you need to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into, and you need to make sure that you're getting the proper value for your money.
Yeah, I want to say something real quick on that note, because I'm glad you reminded me of the whole doing your own research thing. One of the easiest ways you can get scammed when you buy buy things like that secondhand, comics sometimes get printed more than once, and that is a big effector on value. And here's a very easy way that you can check that. So here I pulled out this is Darth Vader number 12, came out recently. This is weird. They did some recolorings on some of them. This is literally just a red version of the normal cover, so it's technically a variant, which makes it easier for me to just show you this. Comics have a barcode, and you might not be able to really read this very well, but that's a little bit better. So
they say second edition.
Yeah, so you have this barcode. The first 3 numbers of the barcode, read left to right, are the issue number. So this is issue number 12. It's 012. The number after that is the cover number. So in A cover, the standard cover is 1, the B cover is 2, and so on. This doesn't count retail exclusive stuff. This is just the stuff that Marvel is putting out. And the last number is the printing number. So this is the first printing. It's nice. Most comics, at least recently, if they reprint them, they give them their own cover. So it's that's an easy way to tell. But some of them, the cover change might not be obvious. It might be a very small color change. If there are comics that do hold value in for the printings, especially if that printing, if that run had an issue with it, sometimes they'll make a printing and there's an error that can give you more value. But on 99.9% of the time, the first printing is the most valuable one, and not counting variants, and that is the one you need. Otherwise, the value tanks. So just make sure if you're buying Darth Vader number 3, you better make sure it's the first printing, or they might scam you. Going along with that, there are reprintings outside of these reprintings are the Marvel made the book, it sold out everywhere, they made it again. Sometimes they get reprinted other ways, they'll do imprints called True Believers was one. They'll do Halloween reprints, again, different values, and then sometimes they'll also reprint retro stuff. So if that Star Wars number 1 is selling for $10 and is pristine, that probably was not printed in 1977. It was probably printed in 2014. So just be careful of that kind of stuff.
So you said that the last number on the barcode is the printing.
Yeah,
number.
again,
Okay.
you can't really see very well, but yeah, there's a 5-digit barcode number right here. The very last number, that if it's not number 1, be careful. So
Okay.
I had no idea. Thank you for
I didn't
know that either. I didn't know that either. I knew that they had, especially in these newer books, they will have second printing. They'll actually have the words printed there. But that's good to know. I didn't know about the barcode.
yeah, fun stuff.
So
Nice.
All right. Well, that about wraps it up on this topic. Like I said, this was, we talk about specifics, specific books, but we it's been a little bit of time since we talked about comic books as a, collection or as a thing. And so it was really fun to sort of talk about this tonight. Any last words before we sign off? Does anybody else have any last words or any comments that they want to say before I sign off?
My comment is that I learned a lot. Also, I want to go buy some more comics. I think, like I was actually looking on Amazon while you guys were talking, looking at Mylar bags, because I just keep the bags that I get my physical comics shipped from Midtown because I don't live near an LCS. I just keep them in whatever bags they are. You're right, they are a bit more expensive, so not super great for a college student, but hey, I think I'll at least invest in a short box at the very least, so they're not sitting on my floor.
Yeah.
Yes, if you do anything, please get a short box so that you can keep those comics nice and pristine, and make sure that when you try to sell them in 30 years, that they're worth the $3.99 that you paid for. That's about all they're going to be worth.
I was about to say, my big takeaway from this is comic collecting is a really fun and really involved hobby.
Yes.
Don't treat it like cryptocurrency. This isn't cryptocurrency. This isn't going to be Dogecoin.
Don't collect with the intent of investing. Collect because it's fun. Collect because you have a community and a show like Youtini and a show like the Cosmic Force, so you can come and be nerdy with it with some friends. That's why you should collect.
But maybe, just maybe, in 10 years, that first edition Charizard card you got sitting in your attic is going to be worth something. So just hold on to that in the back of your mind.
Hold on to them, collect them, but this isn't an investment. You're not going to retire off of these.
Good if you're smart, but don't bank on it.
Well, for those of us that don't have $27,000 or $19,000 to spend on a comic book, I think that's a good place to end it. So that will do it for this week's episode of the Cosmic Force. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and this channel. And while you're at it, go ahead and like this video. So that way you can be notified whenever we have new content on the show. We are all broadcasting live right here on Wednesdays, every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube, or you can also get us on on audio format on your favorite podcasting platform. We do know that we are a little bit behind on getting the newest issues out there. That is just something that we will be working towards getting that updated soon, but we are available on all of your podcasting platforms if you choose to consume us in the audio format. Be sure to visit youtini.com for reviews, articles, and news for the entire expanded universe. And we also encourage you to join our Youtini Discord community by going to youtini.com/Discord. And you can also help support the show by heading to patreon.com/Youtini to start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. A special thank you to OK Endar, Cheryl Bell, Patrick Ortiz, Carl Sander, and Earl Q on our Jedi High Council, and Kyle Hickman, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command for their amazing support. Don't forget, you can tweet the show at Cosmic Force Show or at the host individually. I'm at Ty Rags, Emma is at Irma Jedi 26, Caleb is at Caleb Lamanek, and Jacob is at Jacob Bosch. Thanks again to Emma, Caleb, and Jacob for hosting with me tonight. Thank you to all of you that joined us live in the live chat. And a special thank you to our listeners and viewers wherever and whenever you are watching us. We do truly appreciate your support. We hope to see you all next week. But until then, may the Force be with you.